love lives here.
So for all of you out there in Facebook land that is watching us, I wore this necklace because last night was our Gourmets for Good, and we were at Marty and Vicki Ross's house, and her house is very whimsical. So this necklace kind of reminds me of that whimsy. So I wore that in honor of them today. But I want to talk about a little bit about last evening. Last evening we had a wonderful time. It really ties into the topic today because just when you think that maybe, I'm going to use this word, you're not all that, when you hear other people's perspective of you and what they really think and feel, who you are and who you represent in this world, it can be mind-blowing. We had some really, really deep conversations last night, and some things were revealed, and I think all of us came away with a different kind of idea of how people see us in the world and who, and what we mean to them. So I'm going to say, no matter what you think about yourself, maybe I have imposter syndrome, or I can't really do this, and other people do it better than me, we are right where we need to be. That the things that you bring to the world only can be brought to the world by you. And that is perfect, and that is special in and of itself. So today we're going to talk about this finger pointing on the screen, that inner critic. We're going to talk about that inner critic, and then we're going to talk about how we can use some tools to heal that inner critic. So the inner critic is that learned voice of judgment, comparison, somebody else does it better than me, judgment, oh, you, this, that, and the other, shame, and maybe some fear. But today we're going to claim our truth and that we are unconditionally loved. We are unconditionally spirit-filled. We are divine and we are whole. So what is this inner critic? The inner critic is that internalized voice that undermines our confidence sometimes. It shows up as doubt in ourselves. And it locks us down into some limiting beliefs. Would you say that would be true? It whispers that you're not enough. The voice often echoes expectations from our parents. They wanted us to do something, be something that we decided that wasn't for us. But we can still hear those echoes in our mind of what our parents said we should be doing. It can come from standards of society, that maybe I don't look like society wants me to look like, I don't wear the same clothes that is acceptable for society, and I'm being judged by society, and that's playing in my head as well. Or some past experiences where somebody told you that you didn't fit in. I think there was a story by Don Knox and his teachers who told him that he was the class clown and this and that, he'd never amount to anything. And then he went on to rise to fame in movies and the Andy Griffith Show. Was he on the Andy Griffith Show? So it can show up as that voice that repeats in our head. Perfectionism. You want to be perfect because someone told you that you needed to be perfect, but not in your eyes, but in their eyes. What perfection means to someone else, but maybe not to you. Feelings of inadequacy and the belief that any success is never quite enough. I don't know about you, but I can attest to some of that voice that kind of was repeating in my head. As I've grown, I choose to listen or not listen. But sometimes it still plays. So, how many of you indulge in that self-talk or have those things played? I know, huh? right? What is that all about? Well, one other thing, it can be either negative, and I think that's what we mostly, well, I can't speak for anybody else, but mostly we kind of respond to the negative, but it can also be positive. Some of the self-talk can be positive. You did that. You sang that song, Jabel. You know, band, you did that. That's the positive things that we want to hear. We want to hear in our head. You know, sometimes I would sing a song at the Menifee Church, and I'm like, girl, you did that. That was good. But I often remember singing and listening to myself. And I'm like, oh, you could have went a little higher on that note. And I'm critiquing myself as the words are coming out. Anybody ever do that? You critique yourself as the words are coming out of your mouth? Well, I had to let that go. Let go and let God, right? Let go and let God. If you're going to do something, do it in practicing the presence of God within you. And don't self-talk yourself out of whether it's good, bad, or whatever it was. So, the role of self-talk, it can profoundly influence your spiritual journey. Profoundly. Negative self-talk can create barriers between our true selves and the divine, fostering unworthiness. However, compassionate and affirming self-talk aligns us with our inherent divinity, promoting inner peace and spiritual connection. How many of you have indulged in positive self-talk? That when you step out the door, you say, you know what, I can do this. I can do this. And then you go and do it. So ways the inner critic can inspire negative behavior. We're going to talk about negative behavior first, and then we're going to talk about positive behavior. Procrastination. Anybody ever do that? Anybody ever procrastinate? Avoidance. Anybody ever avoid? Perfectionism. Setting impossible high standards for performance. Negative self-talk. Replaying past mistakes. You know, when I tried to do that before, it didn't quite work out, so I'm going to stay away from that. Harsh judgments about yourself. Comparing yourself to others. Focusing on what went wrong instead of what was going well. You know, you can get 10 people tell you that was fantastic, and you get that one person that say, you know what, whatever, yeah. And focus on the one instead of the 10. So failures, fear of failures and inaction, self-sabotage, burnout, overwork because you're pushing so hard to prove yourself. And it often costs you rest, your health, and it robs you of your joy. Low self-esteem, shame. Difficult receiving praise. Anybody here ever, somebody says, you did a great job, and they're like, yeah, well, I could have, that dress looks nice on you. Well, it doesn't fit quite. Accept the positive praise. Accept it. All right, so some insights. So Rev Jeff and I have been referring to this book, You Belong by Sabine Selassie. And so in her book, she suggests that the inner critic arises from fear and disconnection. But it's not an enemy, but part of ourselves seeking attention and seeking healing. And when we acknowledge it, by acknowledging this voice, we can transform it into a source of insight and growth. Science of Mind tells us that thoughts are creative forces, that the inner critic reflects learned limiting patterns, but we can consciously replace with affirmations of our divine nature. So today we're going to work on shifting our identification from that voice of spirit, from that voice, negative voice, to that voice of spirit within us. We're going to work on transforming the critic and align our minds with divine truth to help manifest in ourselves and in our lives peace, purpose, and joy. So now we're going to talk about ways that the inner critic can inspire motivation and drive. I want that. I can see it, touch it, and I just need to get there. It can motivate us. There was a time when I was working in orthopedics, and there was a position that came up to work with 100 physicians that crossed the board on, it was a group of physicians, it was 100 of them, and for multi-specialties. And they needed someone to be like a secretary to plan their meetings and plan their events and things like that. And I applied for the position, and there's some other people that applied for the position as well. And not once did I ever say to myself, this position is not for you. I knew it was for me. I woke up thinking about it. I went to sleep thinking about it. I was eating it. I just embodied the whole thing. And they couldn't say no. My energy was a yes. And it was quite rewarding. I got to work with all these physicians, and I got to plan their events and plan their meetings and send out letters and all kinds of stuff like that, which in what it did for me, it got me really thinking about, I like being like an event coordinator. I like doing that. And I like seeing the end result. I like seeing the end result. I'm really a good, what do you call it, designator? Delegator. I'm really a good delegator, but I love to see the end result of that. So it can increase your self-awareness and insight. That voice often reveals underlying fears and unhealed wounds, but when you pay attention to it, you get clues about what needs to be healed. It can cause you to have better preparation and foster a higher standard of excellence in you. And it can also inspire some more learning and some more innovation in you. So it can be good. The positive inner voice can be good and rewarding. The negative inner voice can also be, because it can tell you or have you feel what needs to be healed in you. So some examples of people who have had negative self-talk but have transformed those things. So Edison tried thousands of times before succeeding. And he's quoted to say, I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Stephen King, before he sold Carrie, he sent it to publisher after publisher after publisher after publisher and was rejected. And his wife encouraged him, continue to send it to publishers. And it was purchased. And Carrie, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it. Whew. And then Sir James Dyson. He had over 5,000 prototypes before he was able to develop that Dyson brand of vacuum with the bagless. Lady Gaga, we all know Lady Gaga. She was dropped by her label, Def Jams. They told her that she was too theatrical. And it just quite didn't fit with their record label, all the theatrics. But she persisted. And now you can see her in movies, and she has a beautiful voice. So she refined her art and eventually got major success. So lessons from these stories are that failure is often the path towards breakthrough. That we look like, when it looks like we almost want to quit, it should inspire you to keep going. Your breakthrough is just around the bend. It can encourage external support in yourself, and it counts. In many cases, someone encouraged them, their spouse, their friends, their mentors. Connect with someone who's going to inspire you, not someone who's going to say, no, I don't think that's right for you. You shouldn't do that, because it's not going to work out. You don't need that voice. You need the voice of someone who supports you. Surround yourself with people that love and support you and that can see you doing bigger and better things. And timing and preparation. That's what these stories tell us about. It may not have been Lady Gaga's time for that record label, but she patiently waited and got another record label, and now she's achieved a success. So some practical exercises you gotta notice. You gotta pay attention to when your inner critic speaks. You gotta name it. Okay, Doubting Debbie. And Debbie, are you in here? I don't mean you. I just mean that inner voice in my head. You know, you gotta name it. You gotta name it. And push it to the side. Sit it on the shelf, like Elf on the shelf. Put it on the shelf. You got to ask and understand, gently ask, what is this voice trying to help me with? And reframe, turn its message into something compassionate and constructive. And release or redirect it. Thank it for caring. I thank you for caring, but I'm going to do it my way, positively. My daughter says, thank you for caring, Mom, but I'm going to do it my way. Because I'm very much one of those moms who I have an opinion about stuff. Oh, I don't think you should do that. And this is why. Because, I had that experience, and this happened, and that happened, and that happened. So in order to have you avoid all those things, I think you should do it this way. My daughter is really good about setting boundaries. Really good at that. Thanks, Mom. I'm going to do it my way. And so there are some tools that I have for transformation. And it includes the positive one. Awareness. So be alert to your self-criticism without suppressing or denying it. Separate the voice. Remind yourself that it's the critic speaking. And be curious. Have curious inquiry. Ask, is it warning or fear trying to protect me from something? And again, reframing and using affirmations. I am worthy of love and growth. I release limiting beliefs and welcome my potential. I am a divine expression of life and of truth. Use affirmations. And use that in your daily practice. We have a toolbox full of tools that we can use. Meditation, journaling, gratitude, to help us on this journey of self-growth. And so we want to use those things. And witnessing our thoughts, observing our thoughts, and being aware of them. I am not my critic. I'm the awareness behind it. And with that, we're going to go to tables. So the first question is, if you can't see it on the screen, and it's, how does your inner critic usually show up? How does your inner critic usually show up? In your body, your thoughts, or your emotions? How does your inner critic usually show up? In your body, in your thoughts, or your emotions? And number 2, does your inner critic have a name? How do you lovingly tell it to take a back seat? Does your inner critic have a name? And how do you lovingly tell it to take a back seat? And then finally, number 3, what spiritual truth can you affirm when the critic shows up to help you remember who you really are? What spiritual truth can you affirm when the critic shows up to help you to remember who you really are? So, to sum up this inner critic, our inner critic dialogue profoundly shapes our reality. The voice within us, often referred to as that inner critic or that self-talk, it can either uplift us or undermine our sense of self. So when the voice is negative, it may echo past criticism, fuel feelings of inadequacy, and self-doubt. And this can lead to a cycle of anxiety, depression, and diminished self-worth. But conversely, the inner critic can also serve as a positive role. It may arise from a desire to protect us, pushing us toward growth and self-improvement. However, I hear an echo. Sorry about that. However, it can also have a constructive form, and that it requires our conscious engagement to ensure that it serves us without causing us harm. And the key lies in our ability to choose. We are not passive recipients of our inner dialogue. We have the power to listen, to discern, and to respond. And by practicing self-awareness and compassion, we can transform the negative inner critic into a supportive inner guide. So remember, we are always at choice. Each moment offers an opportunity to shift our internal narrative, to replace self-criticism with self-compassion, and to align our thoughts with our highest truth. We are divine expressions, divine emanations of the one power, and the one presence. And so your homework is each morning, say to yourself, I love myself unconditionally and I am worthy. And throughout the day, look for small moments of kindness or courage inside yourself. Name it and appreciate it. So in the morning, say to yourself, I love myself unconditionally and I am worthy. And then the evening before you go to rest, say, I am in a divine expression of love, of creativity, and light. So in the evening before you fall asleep, say to yourself, I am a divine expression of love, creativity, and light. And so it is. Our affirmation, please. Let's say this affirmation. I'm going to say it first and then we'll say it together. I am not my critic. I am a divine expression of love, creativity, and light. Let's say it together like we mean it. I am not my critic. I am a divine expression of love, creativity, and light. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. It is this thing called love. Love is in my mind. Life is in my body. Love is in everything I do. I am it. I share it. I receive it. And I move love forward because love lives here. Thank you and happy Sunday, everyone.